Welcome back everyone to another playthrough of Arkham Horror the card game. Today we are playing against the Gathering on expert difficulty with Daisy Walker using the starter deck from the core set, which includes one copy of each Mystic card and one copy of each Seeker card and a few neutral cards. So I have prepared the scenario so far. We start the game in the study. The study comes into play with 2 clues per investigator and has a shroud value of 2. The chaos bag is prepared for expert difficulty. We took our 5 resources. Now we will shuffle the player deck. Next we shuffle the encounter deck. Okay, then we would be ready. Let's start our starting hand of 5 cards. We are looking for a tome asset. Okay, we do not find any, so we will just mulligan all of these 5 cards and draw 5 new cards from the top of our deck. Okay, any weakness card that is in the starting hand can be put aside and be replaced by another card from the top of the deck. So this would be our starting hand now. Let's see how it goes. Okay, this is quite a challenge, beating the Gathering on expert difficulty with the starter deck of Daisy Walker. We do not have any good cards to fight enemies, so this playthrough is based on luck, more or less, and we did not draw the old book of lore for our starting hand, which will make it more difficult even now. So for the first action, let's just draw a card. Okay, we have Daisy's tote bag. For the second action, we will investigate. I will commit deduction to the skill test, so our intellect will be increased by +1, and if the skill test is successful while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location. So Daisy has a base intellect of 5. Deduction increases it by +1, so we are now at 6. Testing against a difficulty of 2 means we have an advantage of +4 going into the test. Let's shuffle the chaos bag and draw 1 token. Okay, we have a 0. Perfect. That means this skill test was successful and we get to discover 2 clues instead of 1 as we committed deduction. Then we have 1 more action left, which we will use to play emergency cache. Emergency cache is an event that gives us 3 resources. So 1, 2, 3. And let's hope that we do not draw any enemies now. So our turn ends. We skip the enemy phase as there are no enemies in play, and we go straight into the upkeep phase, ready all cards, draw a card and gain a resource. In the Mythos phase we place 1 Doom token onto the agenda and draw 1 encounter card. Perfect, we drew Obscuring Fog, which will be attached to the location, and it increases the attached location shroud value by +2. However, as we already discovered all the clues, we can ignore this card, which works out perfectly for us. So we will use this opportunity to draw a card for our first action. Nice, we have the Research Librarian. He will help us finding a tome So we will play him out. The research librarian costs 2 resources and has a reaction. After he enters play, search your deck for a tome asset and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. So we play him for 2 resources. We trigger his reaction ability, look for a tome. There we have the old book of lore. Shuffle our deck. Then for our second action we will play the old book of lore. It's a tome asset. It costs 3 resources, and as an action we can exhaust the old book of lore to look at the top 3 cards of our deck, choose one to draw and shuffle the other 2 back into our deck. So we will place the book underneath us, paying 3 resources. And now we can use Daisy's ability. Every turn you may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used on tome abilities. So we use Daisy's ability to use the action on the old book of lore to look at the top 3 cards of our deck, and one of them we are allowed to draw, and we will draw let's draw Hyper Awareness. Okay, so we have 1 action left. So let's play the Forbidden Knowledge. It's an asset card that doesn't take any slots. It comes into play with 4 secrets. We can exhaust the Forbidden Knowledge to take 1 horror and move 1 secret as resource to our resource pool. And it costs 0, so let's place it here. That would be our third action. Comes into play with 4 secrets. So our turn ends now. We go straight to the upkeep phase, ready all cards, draw a card and gain a resource. Okay, we move to the Mythos phase. We place 1 Doom onto the agenda and draw 1 encounter card. We have Crypt Chill, also perfect timing. So we have to do a willpower test with a difficulty of 4. If we fail, we have to discard 1 asset, and we will not commit any cards. We will just discard Forbidden Knowledge if we fail. Okay, let's draw 1 Chaos token. -2. Okay, skill test fails and we will discard Forbidden Knowledge. That's the luck we need. I hope it will continue like this so we can beat the Gathering on expert difficulty. Okay, back to our turn. First of all, let's use Daisy's ability to use the book for free. We look at the top 3 cards of our deck and we will draw Shriveling to fight back some enemies. And we will immediately play Shriveling out It's an asset that takes up to 1 arcane slot. It costs 3 resources, comes into play with 4 charges, and has the following action. We can spend 1 charge to fight, and we can use our willpower instead of our combat, and the attack deals +1 damage. If we draw one of those symbols, we take 1 horror. So we pay 3 resources, comes into play with 4 charges. So we have 2 more actions left. We will take 2 resources with the remaining actions. 1, 2. So we end our turn, go straight to the upkeep phase, ready all cards. Draw a card. Oh, gain a resource. Oh, this is very difficult. The issue, oh my god. We may just have to take 2 horror. Yeah, I cannot risk it. Because the knife and mind over matter, both cards are required to beat or to defeat the ghoul priest at the end of the game. So in the mythos phase, the agenda will advance now. We have 3 out of 3. And the back side instructs us to either take 2 horror or discard a random card from our hand. And if we lose mind over matter or 1 copy of the knight, our chances to beat the ghoul priest are very low, so we will just take 2 horror for the moment and move on. We still have to draw 1 encounter card during the mythos phase, and we have a swarm of rats. Okay. So we want to get rid of the rats. Let's use shriveling for that. We will spend 1 charge. Not sure if I want to commit any cards. We would have an advantage of +2 as our willpower is 3 and the combat value of the rats is 1. We could commit blinding light to increase by +1. Yeah, let's try it. So we will commit blinding light to the test to increase our willpower by +1. So we have now an advantage of +3. Quick shuffle, and let's draw chaos token. Oh, very good. We have drawn -1, which is enough. For the skill test to be successful, it deals 2 damage. The rats have a hit points of 1, so they are defeated. Now we have 2 more actions left, but first we will use Daisy's ability to use the book for free. And in this case we could draw Hypochondria and discard it immediately. Because or we take Fearless. Yeah, let's draw Fearless in case we draw another enemy. And let's just take 2 more resources and end our turn. 1, 2. Okay, we go straight to the upkeep phase. Ready all cards. Draw a card and gain a resource. In the Mythos phase we place 1 Doom onto the agenda. The limit is 7 for the second agenda and we draw a counter card. Okay, Rotting Remains. So it's a treachery with the following revelation effect. We have to do a willpower test with a difficulty of 3. For each point we fail by, we have to take 1 horror. Okay, so I want to keep our willpower icons for Frozen in Fear, and because of that we will not commit any cards and just draw a chaos token. So our willpower is 3 against 3. Hopefully we draw a small number. We have drawn -2. Okay, so the test is failed by 2. We have to take 2 more horror, which we will also place onto Daisy Walker. So now we have 4 horror already. Okay, back to our turn. First of all, we use Daisy's ability to use the action on the Old Book of Lore. And okay, I would say we just draw Hypochondria to discard it. So this is our basic weakness. It comes into our threat area into play. We can spend 2 actions to discard Hypochondria. Okay, so we will spend 2 actions to immediately discard the weakness. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 cards in hand, so we would have to discard So let's just play Daisy's Tote Bag. It's an asset that costs 2 resources and does not take any slots. So it gives us 2 additional hand slots which can only be used to hold tome assets. And let's place it like this so we know. So we spend 2 resources for our third action and end our turn. Go to the upkeep phase. Ready all cards. Draw a card and gain a resource. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 cards in hand. In the Mythos phase we place 1 Doom onto the agenda and draw 1 encounter card, which is a ghoul minion. Okay. Another enemy. Let's try to defeat the ghoul minion by attacking with the Shriveling. So we will spend 1 charge. And we will commit Drawn to the Flame to the skill test to increase our intellect by +1. So we test, our willpower is now 4, against the combat value of 2 from the ghoul minion means we have an advantage of +2. Okay, let's draw this one. We have drawn -2, perfect. So the skull token is on expert difficulty -2, and if we would fail the test, we have to search the discard pile and the encounter deck for a ghoul enemy and bring it into play, engage with us. But as we are successful, we deal 2 damage, but we also have to take 1 horror because we revealed the skull token. That's not so good, which brings us up to 5 already. Yeah, it is what it is, but at least we defeated the ghoul minion. He has 2 hit points, the attack deals 2 damage. And we will now use Daisy's ability to use the book. Look at the top 3 cards of our deck. Perfect, and draw the Holy Rosary. For our second action, we will play the Holy Rosary. It's an asset that costs 2 resources and takes 1 accessory slot, and while it is in play we get +1 to our willpower. So let's place it next to us. So we still have to pay 2 resources for that. And we have 1 more action left, which we will use to gain a resource. Okay, our turn ends. We move to the upkeep phase, ready all cards. Draw a card. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 cards in hand and gain a resource. During the Mythos phase, we place 1 Doom onto the agenda. We are currently 3 out of 7 and draw 1 encounter card. Perfect, we drew the Icy Ghoul. The good thing about the Icy Ghoul is that his spawn location is the cellar, and as the cellar is not in play yet, we are allowed to discard it immediately. And we have 1 round where we do not have to deal with an encounter card. That's one strategic point to stay in the study until you reach the 3rd stage of the agenda, because you can discard the Icy Ghoul and there's 1 more very strong ghoul minion that you can discard and get a free turn. Okay, so back to our turn. We use Daisy's ability to use the old Book of Lore. Look at the top 3 cards of our deck. In this case, we will draw Arcane Studies. And for our first action, we will play the Arcane Studies. It's an asset that costs 2 resources, does not take any slots, and during a skill test we can spend 1 resource to increase our willpower or intellect by +1 for each resource we have spent. So there's no limit. And we have now 2 more actions left. Let's use the second action to play the knife. So we have in total we have now 4 hand slots, 2 which we can use for tome assets and 2 regular, because the knife takes up to 1 hand slot. It costs 1 resource and has 2 fight abilities on it. The first one increases our combat value by +1, and then for the second one we can discard the knife to increase our combat value by +2 and deal +1 damage. So the knife I will just place here, paying 1 resource. And for our third action we will just take a resource. End our turn, move to the upkeep phase, ready all cards, draw a card. Okay, we drew the Necronomicon, which is our weakness card. The revelation effect says put the Necronomicon into play in your threat area with 3 horror on it. It cannot leave play while it has 1 or more horror on it. Treat each Elder Sign you reveal on a Chaos token as autofail token, and as an action we can move 1 horror from the Necronomicon to Daisy Walker, and if there are no horror left on the Necronomicon we can discard it. So we place it here and we get 1 resource. Then we move to the Mythos phase, place 1 Doom onto the agenda and draw 1 encounter card, which is Dissonant Voices. It's another treachery. The revelation effect tells us to put Dissonant Voices into play in your threat area. You cannot play as assets or events. At the end of the round, discard Dissonant Voices. So we are allowed to discard it at the end of our round. And I think we should use, oh, I forgot to put 3 horror on the Necronomicon. So we cannot play any assets or events. We could use this round to take all the horror from the Necronomicon on Daisy Walker to get rid of it, and it's kind of risky. It will bring us up to 8 out of 9 horror. But as long as it is in play, we lose the Elder Sign from the Chaos back. So I don't want to lose when we draw the Elder Sign. So maybe, yeah, it's a very tough call, because if we draw more copies of Rotting Remains, we are in big trouble. So not sure what to do. We can ignore it and play with it, hoping to not draw the Elder Sign. Okay, let me think. Or maybe so I would say it's a very tough call. Maybe we keep it out for some turns and use this turn and use Daisy's ability on the old Book of Lore. Look at the top 3 cards of our deck and draw the second copy of the knife. So we would have all the cards that we need for the end game. And for our first action we will play out the second copy of knife. It takes our last hand slot and we will place it next to it, spending one. Oh, sorry, we are not allowed to play any. I forgot about that. Oh, shouldn't have done it. I forgot about that. Okay, then just use our 3 actions to get rid of the Necronomicon. You do not have to exhaust the card, so you can use the action 3 times in a row. So we will take 3 horror, 6, 7, 8, and discard the Necronomicon for our turn. Then we move to the upkeep phase, ready all cards. Draw a card and gain a resource. So our hand card limit is 8. We have to discard 1 card from our hand. We will discard Hyper Awareness because, yeah. And at the end of the round we can discard Dissonant Voices. So, and we get 1 resource. I'm not sure if I took the resource already, but I don't think so. Okay, moving on to the Mythos phase, we place 1 Doom onto the agenda, 5 out of 7, and draw 1 encounter card, which is Frozen in Fear. Frozen in Fear comes into our threat area into play, and the first time we move, fight, or evade, it costs 2 actions. At the end of our round, we have to test the willpower against 3, and if we are successful, we can discard Frozen in Fear. So it's a forced ability we have to test. But now we can play as first action our second copy of the knife. 2, 4, 6, 7 cards. 2. And I would say we will take 2 resources and end our turn. Now we have to test Frozen in Fear. Thanks to Holy Rosary, our willpower is increased by +1, so we are at 4 currently. And we will commit Fearless to the test, which increases our willpower by +1. And if the test is successful, we heal 1 horror. So we are now at 5. 5. We could... means we have an advantage of +2. We could spend 2 more resources with Arcane Studies to increase our willpower by +2, bringing us up to +4. So we really want to get rid of the Frozen in Fear. And we draw 1 encounter Chaos token. We have drawn -1. Perfect. So we wasted 2 resources, however we were successful, so we can discard Frozen in Fear and we get to heal 1 horror from Daisy, which is also very important. Right, now we move to the upkeep phase. Ready all cards. Draw a card. And gain a resource. Then we move to the Mythos phase. We place 1 Doom onto the agenda. We have 2, 4, 6 out of 7 and draw 1 encounter card. Ancient Evils. The Revelation effect says place 1 Doom on the current agenda. This effect can cause the current agenda to advance, so it will advance. We put one more, it's now 7 out of 7. And when it advances, we have to shuffle the discard pile, the encounter discard pile, back into the encounter deck and discard cards until we discard a ghoul enemy. Okay, so shuffle the discard pile back in. Now we discard cards from the top of the encounter deck. There we go, until we discard the ghoul minion. And we have found one. And yeah, back to our turn. So what we will do now is advance by spending 2 clues. And if we advance, we are instructed to discard any enemy at the study. So the ghoul minion is discarded. We remove the study from the game. And we have to bring out new locations. We start in the hallway. And we have the attic with the hidden side on top. We have the cellar and the parlor. Right. So for our next goal, we have to collect 3 clues and we have to be in the hallway to advance. Okay, so back to our turn. For our first action, we will move to the cellar. And there's a forced effect on the cellar. When we move to the cellar, we have to take 1 damage. The cellar comes into play with 2 clues and has a shroud value of 4. We will play Working a Hunch. It's an event that costs 2 resources and has the fast keyword, which means it does not take up to our normal actions. We can play the card only during our turn. Discover 1 clue at your location. So we just spend 2 resources to discover 1 clue. Again, as it has the fast keyword, we do not have to spend one of our normal actions. Then we will use the old book of lore with Daisy's ability to look at the top 3 cards of our deck. And let's draw the barricade. Seven cards, okay. And we will move back to the hallway for our second action, and for our third action we'll just take a resource. And end our turn. So back to the upkeep phase, ready all cards. Draw a card and gain a resource. 8 cards in hand. So we move to the Mythos phase, place 1 doom on the agenda and draw an encounter card. Rotting Remains. Okay, we have to cancel it, and because it can kill us, and we will use Ward of Protection. It's an event card, has the fast keyword on it. Play when you draw a non-weakness treachery card, which we just did. Cancel that card's revelation effect, then take 1 horror. We still take 1 horror, but alternatively 7. I think if we take 3 horror it's worse. So yeah, let's just do it. So we play the card spend one resource, take a horror which we will place on the Holy Rosary, and discard Rotten Remains. Okay, back to our turn. First we will use Daisy's ability. Use the old Book of Lore to look at the top 3 cards of our deck, and we will draw the emergency cache. And for our first action we will play the emergency cache. It's an event that gives us 3 resources. So 1, 2, 3. Then we will move to the attic. So when we move to the attic we have to take 1 horror which we will place on Daisy. We are 8 out of 9. It comes into play with 2 clues and has a shroud value of 1. So we have an intellect of 5. We could just risk it and investigate without committing any cards. Yeah. So we have a natural advantage of +4. And we have drawn the autofill token. Okay. So our turn ends. We go to the upkeep phase, ready all cards, draw a card and gain a resource. In the Mythos phase we place 1 Doom onto the agenda and draw 1 encounter card. Ancient Evils puts 1 more Doom onto the agenda. Okay, so we have 8 out of 8 cards in hand and we have to find the clues. +4 is already very good, but we can still first of all use Old Book of Lore, or I don't know, yeah, we should maybe, to look at the top 3 cards of our deck. Okay, in this case we will take Perception. Oh my god, we cannot deck out because we have to take 1 more horror. So I may not want to do this. Let's put the Perception back in and don't use Old Book of Lore, because if we deck out we have only 5 cards left in our deck. We have to take a horror, which I just remembered, and we want to avoid it. Instead we will use our first action to investigate. Okay, so I want to take this one, and we have drawn -4, which is still enough because we had an advantage of +4, so the test was successful, and we will investigate 1 more time. This time we have a -2, which is also enough to take the last clue that we needed. And we have 1 more action left. With that, 2, 4, 6, 8 cards in hand. We could move to the end game, I guess. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah. 8. yeah, I don't think we should waste any more time, so we will move to the hallway with our last action. Then we go to the upkeep phase as we have no enemies in play. Actually, when we move on, I could also use the old book of lore. Yeah. So let's just assume I have, or anyways, let's use it again. Look at the top 3 cards of our deck. So previously we had Perception. We will take it back to our hand. Shuffle the rest deck. Okay. Now ready everything back. So we are in the upkeep phase. We readied all cards. We are now allowed to draw a card. And we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 cards in hand. So 2 cards we have to discard. And we will discard these 2 cards. Or maybe these 2 cards. So we are now with 8 cards. 2, 4, 6, 8. And we get 1 resource. So before the round ends, we can spend 3 clues to advance in the act. And the bag instructs us to bring out, first of all, to reveal the parlor, which were locked previously because of a barrier. And we are instructed to put Lita Chandler into the parlor and spawn the Ghoul Priest to the hallway, which means that he is immediately engaged with us. And when we defeat the Ghoul Priest, we win the game. So the Ghoul Priest has a combat value of 4, 5 hit points, an agility of 4, and the Hunter and Retaliate keyword. If he attacks, he deals 2 damage and 2 horror. On the agenda, it tells us this round still didn't end. At the end of the round, we have to place 1 Doom onto the agenda for each ghoul enemy in the hallway or in the parlor. So we put 1. Then the round officially ends. And during the Mythos phase, we place 1 more Doom token and draw our final, hopefully our final encounter card, which is another ghoul minion who tries to support his Ghoul Priest. So it's back to our turn. I hope we have 3 actions to beat the Ghoul Priest. It would be awesome if we can beat it on expert difficulty. Hopefully we do not draw any auto-fail token. So first of all, we will play Mind Over Matter. It's an event that costs 1 resource, has the fast keyword, so the enemies cannot use attacks of opportunities for actions that have the fast keyword. We can only play it during our turn. Until the end of the round, you may use your intellect in place of your combat and agility. So let's place the card here that we know it's active. So we spend 1 resource. Again, it is fast, so it does not take up to 1 of our action, and we do not get attacked by the ghouls. And then for our first action, we will attack the Ghoul Priest using the knife, the first action ability on it. However, we can now use our intellect while fighting, so we would have an intellect of 5 against the combat value of 4 of the Ghoul Priest, and all combat tests are considered to be intellect tests, so we are allowed to commit icons that matches with the intellect symbol while performing the attack. And also we can increase our intellect with arcane studies, because the skill test uses the intellect now. So we add 5. The highest negative modifier in the chaos spec is -8, so we would need an advantage of +8. We have already +1 because 5 against 4, so we have to increase our intellect by 7 more. First we will commit perception for +2, +3, +4, and 5, 6, 7. So we will commit all of these cards to increase our intellect by +7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which means that we have an advantage of +8, and if we are successful while committing perception, we are allowed to draw a card. Okay, where do we put them? So hopefully no autofill token and we can win. Let's see. Okay, let's draw this one. We have drawn -2. Perfect. So the first action was successful. We deal 1 damage to the Ghoul Priest, and because of perception we are allowed to draw a card. Okay. Next we will attack one more time with the knife, but this time we will discard it. So we use the second action on it, which deals +1 damage. And we still use our intellect to fight. We will commit perception to increase our intellect by +2, and we will spend 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 5 resources with arcane studies to increase our intellect by 5 more. So in total we again have a difference of +8. And we have drawn our Elder Sign. Okay, so it's +0, the test is successful, and the Elder Sign says that we have to draw 1 card for each tome we control. So we draw a card. Then we draw another card because of perception. Now we deck out, so we have to take a horror, which we will put onto our research librarian and shuffle our discard pile to create a new deck. Okay, so he takes the horror, he is defeated. We drew our 3 cards. We have 1 more knife left in our hand, so this knife is also discarded. We deal 2 more damage. So the Mind over Matter should also be in our deck, but I think it doesn't matter, it comes down to the last attack. We discard the second copy of the knife to deal +1 damage again. Either we are successful and win, or we lose. So for our third action we spent all our 2, 4, 6 resources with arcane studies to increase our intellect by +6, which brings us to +7. In this case we would lose with the -8 and the autofail token, but we will win. We have drawn -2. Perfect. I can't believe it, man. So because we discarded the knife, we deal 2 more damage, which is enough to kill the Ghoul Priest. Thanks for watching. It was fun. See you next time. Bye bye.